Not only is wokeism a religion, but it's a religion for cowards.
That's right, today we're going to be looking at wokeism, the religion for cowards, apparently. That's not true. He's going to be sharing some of his views and how different they are to the wokest religion. But to begin this video, we need to try and understand what the word woke actually means here, because it's not being used like being just simply awake. But I can't find anything that tells me that being woke is a bad thing. In the Oxford English Dictionary, being woke has been extended to figuratively refer to being aware, or well-informed in a political or cultural sense. It sounds like he doesn't like it when people are well-informed and understand things. As most of the religious people I cover on this channel. I was still trying to find out a bit more, but the best I could come up with was this term. I was still trying to find out a bit more to try and see why it was bad, but I still only come up with when an individual becomes more aware of social injustice, or basically any current affairs related to bias, discrimination, or double standards. They just notice it when people do things that are not good. That's it.
Wokeism is a religion.
Not really, but religion is very poorly defined. However, we'll just look at the Oxford Dictionary again. The belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. However, there are religions out there like Buddhism that doesn't have a god, so there are a few other definitions. A particular system of faith and worship. Well, this doesn't describe wokeism, so there is a third one. A pursuit or interest followed with great devotion. Now, devotion can mean religious worship, it can mean prayers, but it can also mean love, loyalty, or enthusiasm for a person or activity. So that, to me, sounds like almost anything you enjoy can be considered a religion. I don't know why you think it's a good idea to try and make out this as a religion and think that it's bad because of it, when all yours is a religion. And if we're going to play around with definitions, let's define cult. A system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So I can make the same claim that Christianity is a cult, according to the Oxford English Dictionary.
That's what I'm going to try to prove to you in this video. I will go even further at the end of the video and show that not only is wokeism a religion, but it's a religion for cowards.
I have just done half the job for you, but unfortunately it's people like you that actually make Christians a victim here. Because there are Christians out there who just don't care about the views you're going to spread here, and you're going to use Christianity as a shield to protect you to say that this is what Christianity is about, and it isn't. And with it you then tarnish the reputation that general good Christians have. I mean, I know I don't like the religion, I don't really like any religion out there, but I like good people.
In religion, the God you worship is not a person living on earth today that you bow down to worship. Instead, we describe God with his attributes. According to biblical Christianity, God is loving, just, merciful, the creator, etc.
Oh, you're serious? Shit. You said he was loving. Well, he killed a baby, that's 2 Samuel 12. And honestly, that was putting it lightly. And then you also said merciful. Which is weird, because didn't he cause the great flood to kill all the sinners? Sounds very merciful.
In wokeism, the attributes of God are different.
There's one attribute that they both have. It's that they both don't exist.
The most important attribute of the woke God is that he is the ultimate victim. Let's pause here for just a second and define victim. Most people would define a victim as a person who was actually oppressed or who was acted upon against his or her will. Forget that.
That's right, we've already established that he doesn't like you to have knowledge, so I guess he's just going to give you his own version.
The woke definition is a person who makes himself as unnatural as possible. The idea being the more unnatural you are, the more oppressed you are, and so you deserve attention to compensate for that oppression.
I don't think this guy sees the parallels with him making a video like this to get attention, whinging about the woke religion. And if I haven't made it clear enough already, he's made it up. There is no woke religion. He's just collected a group of people and labelled them wokeists, I think you'd call them. And that's not how it works. If you're a part of a religion, you self-identify as part of that religion. I couldn't then just call you a Muslim.
The most important attribute of the woke God is that he is the ultimate victim. In Christianity, the Holy Spirit works in every Christian throughout their lives to make them more like Christ. This is called sanctification.
Okay, so you said you want to be more like Christ, and it's the woke religion that's evil, and judging by your channel, you're a Catholic, so Catholics believe that God became a human being through the person of Jesus. It's called the Incarnation because God became human in the flesh in the person of Jesus. So you essentially want to be more like God, not just another human being, but God. Correct me if I'm wrong, and we've already spoke about the evils that God has done. I'm sure he's done good things, but that doesn't justify what I mentioned earlier. And I'm sure you're about to tell us why wokeism is bad, but I do want to know why you think it's more evil than your God's doing, and why you think it would be better to do that instead.
As Christians, that's our goal, to be more like Christ. Similarly, in wokeism, the goal is to be more and more like the woke God. A straight white man is far from being like the woke God. So maybe that person starts identifying as a woman or as non-binary. Now he's a little closer to being like the woke God.
So you claimed that wokeism wants you to be more like the woke God, and the woke God is a victim, and the ultimate victim. And then you said, a cis white man is far from being the woke God. I don't know if you're noticing this, but you've just stated that the cis white male is the least likely to be a victim. And then you lead on to say that a woman is more likely, which you also claimed it to be as unnatural as possible. Are you saying that women are unnatural? I think you're kind of proving the point of why those people you call woke have a problem with what you say. The ironic thing is, you claim they want to be as unnatural as possible, but yet you also claim you want to be more like God. A supernatural, timeless, spaceless entity. Do I really need to explain this? Look, I know he was on about transgender people and non-binary people here, but if we're just talking about what's natural, then non-binary people have existed for at least double the time of Christianity, and that's just what's on record. It's all natural, you just don't like it.
A person's gender, sexual preference, physical appearance are the top ways to make yourself more victim-like.
I honestly don't understand how you can put quotation marks around victim when you say it. More than 300 trans and gender diverse people throughout October 1st, 2022 and September 30th, 2023 were murdered. Your second one there was sexual preference, and we don't even really need to cover that. We've already looked at Matt Powell, and he advocates for the government to execute gay people because they should be criminalized as it is in the Bible. I suppose that's not victimizing them either. No one makes themselves these ways. And your last one on the list is physical appearance? Like what? People aren't dressing or appearing, acting, or what? Just the way you think that they should? You're aware that everyone has their own mind and it's their bodies. They can do what they want, how they want to do things. I assume you'd have an issue with someone who was born male, wears a dress and has long hair. You're aware I'm looking at Jesus when I describe that, right?
More unnatural, more like the woke God. Each member of wokeism attempts to get further and further away, looking like the enemy, which is the conservative straight white male. Let's call him the woke antichrist.
Those people he referred to as members of wokeism actually look really happy, and also they look awesome. And the woke antichrist, well, he doesn't look unhappy, he looks perfectly fine. And I don't see anything wrong with him. The only thing I'd agree with being the enemy would be the conservatives. I've never heard a LGBT positive conservative. I'm not saying they don't exist, I'm sure they do. But also, conservative people can be women. You know this, right? It's not exactly about who you are, it's more about what you want to do to other people and how you want other people to live. Things that don't affect you specifically, but what you try to push on others. I think that's where the problem lies. Like, for example, I've got long hair, longer than most males, and quite frankly, it's getting really long now and I like it. It's almost as long as Jesus is now. I've changed my appearance that doesn't match my gender, essentially. Does that suddenly mean that you can tell me what to do about it? Or I'm worshipping some unnatural god? I fail to see your point, is what I'm saying. I react to people on YouTube who post what I consider to be silly things. You're dragging people into frame and then framing them poorly. My point is leave people alone.
The woke antichrist was born with original sin. In Christianity, we were all born with original sin. Adam sinned in the garden and he is our representative until we are saved. And so we are all sinners. Not just because we sin, because we were born with original sin.
Yeah, because that makes much more sense. Despite the fact that it completely contradicts the Bible, where it states, A child will not suffer the sins of the father. And with Adam being the first man would be the first biological father.
Similarly, in wokeism, white people are born with original sin. Whatever sins white people committed in the past, real or imaginary, white people today are responsible for them. When you hear the wokies say that white people should have to pay reparations for slavery, it doesn't matter if this particular white person did anything wrong.
With you being a proponent of original sin, then I'm surprised you don't agree with this. I personally don't believe that somebody should pay money for a crime they didn't commit, or for someone to receive money for a violation that wasn't something that happened directly to them. But on the other hand, the questions of who is responsible for paying those things, generally three actors are agreed upon. Federal and state governments, who supported and protected the institution of slavery, private companies that benefited from it, and rich families that owe a good portion of their wealth to slavery. So it kind of feels like their families took away from other families, so I can understand the wealth distribution issue. But other than that, I don't really know enough about the topic to actually discuss it, so I won't.
Any white person is still responsible for that original sin. The members of wokeism, or wokies, are all in various stages of victimhood, just as Christians are in various stages of becoming more Christ-like.
I don't know, mind. I think when Christianity doesn't go extreme, then both sides of those two groups that you've just made seem pretty happy generally. The only problems I see is when people actually make them victims, that's when they become victims. And I've heard that Christians can become victims too. Does that make them wokey Christians? And are they then separate from both groups, like non-binary would be from gender? It was like I said earlier when I said that they're victims of people like you who make them look like idiots.
The members of a religion have all chosen to be in that religion, and the authorities have allowed them to stay.
Except for wokeism, remember. This guy and others like him are the ones that put you there.
In a solid biblical church, for example, if a member of the church is having an affair and refuses to stop, the pastors will put him on church discipline and not allow him to return. In the Catholic Church, you can be excommunicated. In the Mormon Church, you can have your temple card taken away. But in wokeism, if a member was to commit a grave enough sin, he would be kicked out.
That's strange. I don't remember seeing that passage in the Bible. But if I did see that passage in the Bible, men shouldn't compete in women's sports. That's true. They shouldn't. Trans men should not compete against women. There would most certainly be an advantage there through testosterone being put through the body. Just to be clear, a trans man is a person that was born female and transitions to male. Because I know what he's trying to say, that a trans woman is a man, and they shouldn't be allowed to compete against women. But the alternative is worse, and it doesn't make sense to argue it. There are rules in place that require you to have been on HRT for quite a long time, which allows changes to happen in the body, so your muscle mass redistributes. And I find it funny when people say about bone density, which I'll admit would maybe help in things like boxing, where, durability helps, but when it comes to things like swimming, it makes you heavier because your bones are more dense. Some people have a disadvantage. And what I dislike most about these statements is it discredits women so much. Men are not more superior than women in every single aspect of sports. If we're going into stereotypes, then women are much better in endurance. They can last longer in long distance running. Get your mind out the gutter. Basically anything that involves long-term endurance. And from the studies that I've actually looked at, I have seen that trans people typically still have just a slight advantage, but no difference than cis women do in comparison to each other. Like a team of basketball players, all women being slightly taller than the average woman would still have a biological advantage over other women. And that's the sort of differences we're talking about here for a trans woman on HRT. And it really starts to show that it's all just about men being superior to women when it comes down to trans people still struggling to get accepted in things like chess, because apparently males have a biological advantage there, somehow. In the end, my logic is to let the experts decide. If experts say if you're a trans person you need to be on hormones for at least 6 months or a year, or even 2 years, then that's what they say and there's reason for them saying it. But quite frankly, I don't care what it says in the Bible, but I'm not going to be looking in that to find my scientific understanding of reality around me.
But in wokeism, if a member was to commit a grave enough sin, he would be kicked out. The religious leaders would publicly announce his sin and his excommunication from wokeism. The members would then follow their leadership and harass the person both publicly and privately. This could be as minor as informing the person that they offended you and demanding an apology, or it could be as major as threatening to harm the person's children and making sure the person knows that you know where their children go to school.
To be honest, I've never actually seen any of this to be true. Instead, actually, being a small channel on YouTube, having a small following, I get a few thousand views if you include my shorts, but already I've had direct death threats on this channel. All I'm saying is that I seriously underestimated how violent these types of Christians can be. But just to make it clear, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. He may have a valid point, because humans can be bad. It doesn't matter what group you look at, there'll be a bad person in it. And if you as an individual have experienced that, then that is terribly unfortunate, and I'm sorry you had to go through that.
What sin could a Wokey commit that would cause this kind of treatment? It is usually blasphemy, speaking against the woke God, the belief system, or the religious leader.
All of which you haven't yet defined.
In Christianity, the Bible wraps up sin into two commands: love God and love your neighbor.
Which, by the sounds of it, you're failing at least one of those things right now.
Interestingly, the sins in wokeism are wrapped up in the same two commands: love God and love your neighbor. This all comes down to the definition of love. In Christianity, love is following the guidance of Scripture. It's mourning with those who mourn. It's sharing the gospel. It's holding your brothers and sisters accountable.
And although I agree with the last one, holding people accountable, it's when it gets taken too far, and it's like Matt Powell who says we love the gays but we need to kill them because they're accountable for their sins and we want to save their eternal souls. So forgive me for not trusting your biblical love here.
In wokeism, love means tolerance and agreement with religious leaders as well as other members. For example, if a person were to say,
I identify as a lesbian man,
and you said, that's impossible, because part of the definition of lesbian is being a woman.
I've never really heard the term lesbian man used in a serious conversation, only when it comes to homophobic rhetoric. However, let's just say that I met someone new and they described themselves as a lesbian man. They're not trying to play a victim, they're trying to communicate something to you. It is some form of self-identification, and the reason for it is to help others understand who they are. My logic on what that means is that they're someone who identifies as a male, but has a vagina, and they like other people's vaginas. That's probably what it means. Quite frankly, I don't want it in my search histories, so I'm not really going to look it up.
That would be unloving of you to say because you're not accepting and you're not tolerant of another member. Or if a man were to say,
I'm a trans woman, and I'm a lesbian,
and you said to him, that just means you're a straight man, that would be considered a sin because it's not accepting and it's intolerant of another member.
While it definitely wouldn't be considered a sin, because it's not a religion. You're talking about transgender people, and the fact that you don't understand them. If someone says they're a trans woman who is a lesbian, that is perfectly acceptable to say. They're telling you that they were born male, they transitioned, so now they're a woman, and trans women come under the category of women. And a woman who seeks a relationship with another woman is called a lesbian. We can take away all of the definitions. We can take away the words woman and man. We'd still have people who are trans. As for the response to the statement, that could be worded better and it wouldn't be bad. Because again, it's about you making them victims. Let me just play the statement again.
And you said to him, that just means you're a straight man.
So you are telling them that they are a straight man. But what you could do is go, doesn't that just mean you're a straight man? And as long as you're genuine about the question, they will tell you the answer. But if you're going to be trying to impose your beliefs on people, then they're probably not going to respond very well, are they?
What is considered sinful or what it means to be tolerant can change because in wokeism, truth is subjective.
I mean, it's backed up by science, so it's not as subjective as you may think, but I can see from your perspective that it might be subjective. But quite frankly, most of this video's truth seems to be subjective. The only way I think it could be considered truth is if it was a retelling of a fiction story.
In religion, there is a source for truth. Usually it's a text, and then oftentimes there are actual people that are considered sources for truth as well. In Christianity, the Bible is our only source for truth.
Like I was saying, a fiction story. One that includes a talking donkey, I might just add, and a talking snake. With all of humanity's gene pool going down to 2 individuals. One of those individuals died at the age of 930 years old. Oh, you know that guy Jesus? Yeah, he was born from a virgin, wasn't he? So he only had the female side of the chromosomes. That makes him intersex. And he went around going, I am he. The intersex condition that Jesus would have had would be an unpaired chromosome. That would be Turner's syndrome. People with Turner syndrome are born with female anatomy, at least externally. With him going around saying, I am he, Jesus was intersex and transgender. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that makes Jesus woke according to this video. Hey, don't look at me, you're the one that said the Bible was true. I'm just going off of that.
But in Catholicism, they have the Bible, as well as other texts, and the Pope. In Mormonism, they have the Book of Mormon and the prophets. In Wokeism, they also have their religious leaders who are their source for truth. These are the people who are most like the woke God, meaning those who are the furthest from what is natural. The further you are from what is natural, the closer you are to the woke God.
But as we're here anyway, I'm going to cover 2 points. Number 1, he then starts talking about like Christianity, Catholicism, and Mormonism after demonizing wokeism as a religion. So he's trying to bring down wokeism to the level of religion so he can then put it on par with what he believes is okay. I just don't understand why you think it's better for you to say something else is a religion so that you can dismiss it more easily. It's almost like you know religion is a lot easier to dismiss, particularly based on logic or science. I don't get why you think this is better. And then referring to people just because they are more unnatural to be more like the woke God. And the only way you've described the woke God is to be unnatural, so anything would fit there as long as you're not biologically natural, I guess. So, you know, someone who has to have glasses, for example. And there's medical issues, like where someone has to have a wheelchair, or maybe even metal plates to help the healing of their bones. I'm no medical expert, by the way, if you haven't guessed. But even something like amputees who have prosthetic limbs, would they suddenly become woke as well? If we are basing it on what looks natural, I assume you want to get as far away from wokeism as possible, right? Because you want to look the most natural as possible. So why are you wearing a purple shirt? I mean, don't take it off, please, but then you also shave your hair and have it stuck up, which is perfectly fine. If that's how you want to present yourself, go ahead. But you're the one saying that people should be more natural, but it's only okay when you do it. Or just within the boundaries of your own belief.
Just say something absolutely insane and see if people will disagree with you or tell you that you're wrong. Call pedophiles minor attracted people. Whoever did that for the first time was definitely a woke prophet. Because if you can normalize pedophilia and not have the group disagree with you, you've got some power.
Yeah, we're at that point where it goes too far again. Now, there is a difference between those two terms, and I couldn't care less about the difference. Which, as you can tell by the video, this guy doesn't either, but it's a common and baseless, useless trope against the LGBT community. Again, trying to demonize them by comparing them to people who, by definition, would be committing evil acts. But he brought it up, so let's look into it. He said the Antichrist was the cisgendered, white, straight, conservative male. Now, the only part I agree with that is just the conservative part. Because I don't really like basing my things on looks, I base it on opinions. And which of the political parties have been known for trying to lower the age of sexual consent and marital consent? Oh yeah, of course, you're going to ignore that sort of information, aren't you?
Truth is whatever these most powerful people say it is. That means that truth is completely subjective. Your truth is true and my truth is true, even if those truths contradict each other.
Then I guess one of those truths must not be true. I wonder which one it is. Maybe it's the one that contradicts itself. Just a thought. I understand that truth can be subjective. Like, a polymorous relationship isn't for me. But if it works for you, just because I have one opinion and you have a different one, it's just a thing that affects ourselves and it doesn't affect each other. And just because something works for me doesn't mean it'll work for you. Everybody's different, and that's okay.
The consequences of truth being subjective is absolute absurdity. If there is a blue ball on the table and I say the ball's red, that doesn't change the fact that it's blue and not red. Maybe I'm colorblind and I'm not able to accurately identify the color of the ball. The truth stays the same regardless of what I say.
It's funny he should use colors because colors practically don't exist in the way that we perceive them in the universe. If no one was there to perceive the colors wouldn't exist in the same way. They're just different wavelengths of light. So colorblind people actually probably have a better perception of the truth of reality here.
But in wokeism, everybody is correct. It's not the truth, it's your truth. This is absolutely absurd.
It is absurd, and that's because you're doing it wrong. You see, this person here is a transgender woman. If you want to call that person a man, you can say that that's your truth, if you really want to, but you'd be wrong. A trans woman is under the category of women, just like a trans man being under the category of men. There is also the category of non-binary, which are neither male or female, just like the Christian God, who is genderless, which by definition makes him non-binary. The closest any of this actually gets to a God.
Truth is objective. The obvious way to prove this is math. If I say 1 + 1 = 4, I'm just wrong. It doesn't become true because it's my truth.
Just like I said before, truth can be subjective, but it can also be objective. Most people would agree that 1 + 1 = 2 and not 4. Just like when you see a trans woman that we showed earlier, you'd say woman, and a trans man, you'd say man. So I don't know what he's talking about here. If I had to guess, it's the idea that trans people were a different gender when they were born, and he thinks they're delusional. But no, trans people would be delusional if they already thought that they were the sex that they felt they needed to be, in which, if that was the case, they wouldn't transition because they'd believe they already were that gender. So I really don't get his point here.
Even the wokest of the woke would have to admit that math is clear, objective truth.
Math is basically racist under this ideology because it says there is no such thing as an objective reality. So 4 might not be the right number. 2 + 2 might actually = 5.
The basis of her point is to just be open-minded, but the maths is actually wrong, and I have no idea what is meant by math is racist. The idea that 2 + 2 can = 5 comes from a falsehood in maths of using 0. For example, 0 = 0. So 20 - 20 = 25 - 25. So you can divide the first lot by 4 and you can divide the other lot by 5 and then cancel out the bracketed figures to create 4 = 5, and therefore 2 + 2 = 5. But it's wrong because you'd have to divide by 0 to create the correct math. But the reason the analogy isn't good is because math is meant to be objective, whereas trans people will still exist if you change the words to mean the opposite. If you change man to mean woman and woman to mean man, trans people will still exist. It really doesn't matter. They're trying to solve medical issues.
Members of religions are genuinely kind to people who are not in that religion.
Right, and because you've said that, and you have equated wokeism as a religion, so I can show you how kind you actually are to other people's religions.
Not only is wokeism a religion, but it's a religion for cowards. Woke God is that he is the ultimate victim, who makes himself as unnatural as possible. And so you deserve attention to compensate for that oppression. The ultimate victim, whereas non-binary. Now he's a little closer to being like the woke God. Are the top ways to make yourself more victim-like, more unnatural, more like the woke God, hence to get further and further away, looking like the enemy. The woke antichrist. White people committed in the past, real or imaginary, or wokies, are all in various stages of victimhood. That just means you're a straight man. Or it could be as major as threatening to harm the person's children. Call pedophiles minor attractive people.
To be fair, that is about as nice as other religions get to other religions.
Especially in Christianity and Mormonism, you'll often have people out on the street trying to talk to people about their religion. These people have other things they could be doing. They're out there out of love for people.
And I believe that some Christians are genuinely in belief of that and try their best. And then there are Christians who genuinely believe that and spread hateful messages. And then there are Christians who just don't care and also don't care. I think you're the middle one.
But wokeism, however, is different. If you're not a member of wokeism, you are the enemy.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. Baptize me as a wokist.
Conservatives who are willing to say publicly that there are only 2 genders and you can't change your gender, you will be attacked by the woke mob. They will do everything they can to destroy your reputation, your career, and your life.
No, they won't, because that's actually a point they agree with you on. You can't change your gender. Someone who is born male, biologically speaking, but has a female gender, can't change that. Conversion therapy was an attempt to change the gender to the sex, the mind to the body. But at best you could say that it failed miserably, but it definitely made things worse. So no, I agree with you, you can't change your gender. For this next clip, I'm just going to simply make a point, flipping the roles to make it more accurate. Just so I'm being honest and clear, I'm not cutting up the footage, apart from, to make the clip.
Most of us don't have to worry about being publicly harassed because we're not public figures. But this kind of harassment happens on a smaller scale with regular people as well. Disagreeing with
religion
can easily get you fired from your job. Being
any of the LGBTQIA+ community
can keep you from being qualified for a job. The most courageous will speak out against this harmful nonsense and stand strong when the inevitable backlash comes.
Sorry, I just found it ironic that he was claiming woke people claim to be the victims when he accurately described real issues, but then claimed he was the victim of it.
Most people will stay quiet and stay out of the conversation.
Because most people realize it doesn't affect them, and that they shouldn't be trying to dictate how other people live their lives.
And the most cowardly will bow to the mob and become a member of wokeism. And that is how
Wait, that was your proof for them being cowards?
wokeism is not only a religion, but a religion for cowards. Thank you for watching.
Flipping out. That is the level of proof these people think they need to actually provide for it to be considered proof. A statement, that's it. See, for me, I don't like religions. And there is a level of cowardice here, but that doesn't mean I think that about all Christians. There are Christians, as I said in this video, that can do good. But then there are other people who hide behind the religion to spread their hate messages. And in my opinion, that is cowardice. Just to be able to talk about your own opinions, you have to hide behind a religion and its book, trying to drag down a whole community, whilst also dragging down your own. As for my proof, that would be the video we just watched today. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you see any other videos you'd like me to have a look at, and there are 2 videos on screen right now that I'd like you to have a look at. Feel free to click on one, and I'll see you there.